What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our ACC football channel. Pittsburgh had a pretty difficult non-conference schedule in 2019. And I tell you what, this team has done an excellent job scheduling non-conference games against very good opponents. My hat's off to them. Pitt, again, has gone out and scheduled pretty tough opponents. Last year they played Penn State for the second year in a row, and they also played UCF again. Of course, they had won that game. So they had two very respectable non-conference games on the schedule, and I think ACC teams should do that. I think they should play two at least pretty good teams in the non-conference because they have four non-conference games. This year, Pitt, it's their turn to play Notre Dame. They didn't really play anyone else in the non-conference, but let's take a look at the schedule. They open up on September 5th against Miami of Ohio, so that's where they will start the season. And then they go on the road on September 12th to play Marshall, back home September 19th to play Richmond. So three pretty easy non-conference games. I just talked about how they have scheduled pretty tough non-conference schedules. So this year, not so much. And Notre Dame really not in Pitt's control because they just have a rotation with the ACC teams. But you're playing Notre Dame, so I guess they could use a year off from playing two good non-conference teams. But they should start the season off 3-0, absolutely, with that schedule. Then they get to open up ACC play against Duke on September 26th. This will be a home game. Going to be a really interesting game. Two teams that I don't think are favorites in the Coastal, but two teams that have surprised in the past and could surprise again in 2020. It wouldn't shock me. So that's maybe a little bit of an elimination game. I know it's just the first game of the season, but the loser of that game probably going to have a tough time winning the Coastal Division. Moving on to the month of October, they play Miami on the road. That'll obviously be a big game in the division. And then they get a bye week after the Miami game before playing Notre Dame. They get Notre Dame at home on October 17th. Follow that up with a game against Georgia Tech on October 24th. Georgia Tech is a team that did not have a good year last year, but they have a ton of production coming back. That could be an interesting game there. They will play Florida State. That will be one of their crossover games against the Atlantic Division. They play them on Halloween, October 31st, on the road. That could be a tough test there. And then on to the month of November after that. The first game of November is going to be a big one. It's a home game on a Friday night. Pitt will host Virginia Tech. That is a game that could have major division implications for sure right there. Friday night games, home teams, I say this pretty much in every video where there is one. Thursday, Friday night games, there seems to always be a trend towards the home team. And if they're an underdog, it doesn't matter. How many times have we seen upsets on that night? And who knows if it'll even be an upset. Pitt might be the favorite in that game by the time we get to that point. Who knows? But that'll be a big opportunity, I think, for Pitt. Then they follow that up with back-to-back road games in the division. First, North Carolina on November 14th. That's going to be a very tough test there. North Carolina looking really good this year. Virginia on November 21st. Of course, they won the division last year. I think most people expect them to step back just a little bit, but we'll see what they look like. And then Syracuse on November 28th at home. That's their other game against the Atlantic Division. So the schedule for Pitt is much better this year than we have seen in previous seasons. They do not have to play Clemson. Also, I think you would say Louisville is the second best team out of the Atlantic Division. They don't have to play them. They only have one tough non-conference game this year instead of two, and it's at home against Notre Dame. Now, winning the division, I think, is going to be tough because you've got Miami on the road, Florida State on the road, North Carolina on the road, Virginia on the road, so some tough road games in there. That North Carolina one and then the Virginia Tech game before that could be really big games if they're going to have a shot to win this division. But I don't think Pitt's necessarily one of the favorites, the top favorites to win the Coastal, but I do think they're in the conversation. I think they have a shot. I think that division really is wide open, and I think everyone would you'd have to say that. I mean, you've had 7 years, 7 different division winners, so no reason to think that Pitt cannot make a run and win that division. I think the schedule sets up in a way that I think they're going to have a pretty good year with this schedule, but again, I think it might be kind of tough for them to win the division just because you got so many big road games and some big ones, again, in the division like Miami, North Carolina, and Virginia.